New Luvafoodie iced tea. 4 clean drinking iced tea flavors. Lemon lovers, passion fruit lovers, raspberry lovers, and blood orange lovers iced tea. Eat clean, be well and stay well with our clean eating spice blends at Luvafoodie.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Luvafoodie LinkedIn Live. I'm your host, Michelle Mazzara, and today is October 10th. We're back on. I know last week I had to take it off, but I have a very special guest today, owner, CEO, inspirational entrepreneur, Chris Forte. Welcome.
Thanks, Michelle, for having me. Grateful to be here.
I'm happy to have you. You have some wonderful energy bars that we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to taste in front of everybody. But first, Chris, let's talk a little bit about you. You're an entrepreneur. How did you get to be an entrepreneur? And tell us a little bit about you prior to starting this company.
Yeah, so I guess entrepreneurship, there's no such things as accidents, but has always been in my blood. So, I had a real aha early in life. I think I was a sophomore in high school. And this is in the 80s, both of my parents were corporate executives. And I'll never forget this. Within a week, they both lost their jobs. This was in the 80s, and put a lot of stress in the household. And I just remember that kind of was always instilled with me. Like, I'm not going to go work for a corporation or, and be in that position. And that kind of was just always in the back of my head. But I followed the traditional path of going to college and working for a company in a corporation. And after a few years, that was a telecom company in Chicago. I was approached by another gentleman to start our own business. And so I can say that really since that time, at the age of 25, now I am 52, but I've been an entrepreneur for that whole path. And there's been a lot of ups and downs along the way, but I've always been a person who is kind of worked for themselves, and have had and been blessed to have wonderful people around me building certain types of businesses.
Sure. And so starting so young, I mean, when I was a little child too, I was like maybe 7, I started making barrettes and going door to door selling barrettes.
There you go.
So I think,
Yeah.
and then I did similar to what you did. I did the corporate America thing for like 25 plus years. And then I had a defining moment. I'm like, if I'm going to do my own thing, I have to do it now. But
Right.
having that entrepreneur spirit is, it's either in you or not. I don't think it's something that you can just wake up one day and say, I think I want to be an entrepreneur at age 40. Right?
Right. I
So,
totally agree with that.
yeah. What do you think are the key elements to being an entrepreneur? If you had to say, what are the 3 things that define you? I guess it would be different for everybody, but what about you, for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. Early on, it's, and I think a lot of younger entrepreneurs go through this, is they just want to make a lot of money. But I've realized over the time that's never really what it was about, even though I thought it was. It really is about freedom. And that can be, different for each one of us, but it's a type of freedom to kind of live life on your own terms. And in order to do that, you do have, you call it high risk, high reward. But I would think number 1 is some sorts of freedom. 2 is purpose. And what I mean by purpose is to have an impact on whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're a small business and you have a handful of employees, or you have hundreds of employees, but you can make an impact on people's lives. And so that is kind of like an extended family within your own walls of the people that are helping you, build something. And then 3rd, I think, is what you're offering to the marketplace. You're making the world a better place in whatever you're offering. If it's a service or a product, but you're part of a much bigger part of universal plan, that you're making the world a better place by bringing something out to the marketplace. So I think those 3 things: freedom, purpose, and making the world a little bit better.
Right. And you've done that with these delicious Y energy bars. I have to tell you, I don't know how I saw you on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's like my go-to place. every day. And I don't know if it was through a mutual connection, but we were already connected. And I started looking into your line and your product line, and I'm like, your story and the fact that you're really inspirational, that kind of turned me on. And I thought, this is a guy that I want to have on my show, but I want to try his product first. Well, actually, you sent me samples, but I was surprised, Chris, how truly delicious these bars are. And I'm not just saying it because you're my guest. I've tried other energy bars and they've been chalky, they've been dry. These are extremely moist and chewy, and I would buy these in a heartbeat. And I don't say that about everybody who's on my show. I mean, usually I do endorse products that I would consume, but these are really delicious. So tell us about how you met. I know a little bit, but how you got started, how the recipes came about, and about the chef too.
Yeah. So, yeah, talk about everything being purposeful. So, first, I have always been a bar eater. So back when I was talking about that 25-year-old entrepreneur, I've been eating bars practically, it's hard to believe, over 25 years. And I was a big Cliff Bar person. So that is what that would be my go-to bar. And I had that Cliff Bar, pretty much the peanut butter bar, for about 10 to 12 years. And then I started taking up yoga, and that became
Okay.
very passionate. And it became very passionate, where I went on to get not only become a registered yoga teacher, but really started to study the ancient scripture of food, and what food really is for our bodies. So I then had a whole different perspective on what food means to our bodies, and it's essentially fuel. So what I did is I just started using me as a beta test, looking at all the types of foods I eat, and start letting go of the stuff that let go of the stuff that didn't serve me. And and nothing against the Cliff Bar, but the ingredients that were in there was everything. I had to let it go. And that was a big void in my life, because for 3 years I couldn't find my go-to bar. And then fast forward 3 years later, across from my yoga studio on a blizzard winter day, I'm right across the street from this juice place where I get my shot of wheatgrass every day. Here comes this young man slipping on ice with a bunch of bars flying out of a box. And that was Chef Jay. And he brought these bars. They were in clear packaging. He's handing them off into the, to the woman. The woman's giving him a check. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. But I felt the need to say, hey, excuse me, young man, can I see that bar? And he had a cacao bar on him. And I took a bite of it. And it was like a divine light went through my crown chakra, through my root chakra. And I heard this beautiful voice, that intuitive voice, whatever you want to call that, God or just intuitive. You now have something to do. So I was an author of a book, and he had a book in his hand. I said, Chef, let's walk to my place. It's right around across the street. Let's exchange books. And along that path, I heard his story and how he developed the bar. And 24 hours later, I went out to his apartment and sat down with him and his fiance. I said, Chef, what do you want to do with this bar? And he's like, I'd like to make this big. I'd like to make this as big as Cliff Bar someday. So he says Cliff Bar, right? And I said, well, those are some lofty goals. But I can tell you, I've had every bar under the sun, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I truly believe this is the best bar out there. And so we shook hands. We said, why not? And that's one of the many reasons behind the name Why. And hence why bar was founded, really late 2017 in November.
Nice. So, Chris, right now this is the blueberry one. Is this the actual, or one of these flavors?
My favorite too. My favorite too.
I love it. I love the chewiness. I could eat this whole thing right now, but I won't.
Yeah.
Are some of these bars the original recipes, or did you work with him and format the recipes?
Well, 5 of the 7 bars were original. Zesty Lemon and Blueberry Bliss came later on. And yeah, we did have to the main recipe was still there, but we kind of had to format the bar a little bit. It was a little too big in the beginning. And, when we wanted to approach this from like building a business, and how we could scale, because we manufacture our own bars. And I think that's very important too. We don't outsource it. We don't use a co-packer. So we had to make it to a place where we can, make a few thousand bars a day, and invested in some equipment, and making sure that everything kind of goes through our extruder and then through the packaging machine and what have you. But the base of the ingredients has always been the same.
Okay, so you made a commitment financially right away. That's a risk, big risk, because I actually have a co-packer. I
Yeah,
financially couldn't right now. I mean, it doesn't mean someday that I wouldn't be able to
right.
manufacture
Yeah,
them, the spices myself.
yeah,
But um, what what gave you that idea that, okay, financially that's a big risk, that you
yeah,
could go ahead and do this? I mean, that's a leap of
yeah,
faith, number one. And
yeah.
maybe that leads into us talking. I still want to stay on the bars, but one of the key words that define you and that I see in your website and just knowing you is inspiration. You're
Yes.
inspirational. So was it
Yeah.
your leap of faith? Was it your faith in, I don't know what religion you are, or how did your faith in being inspirational factor in that decision? Like, I'm going to take this huge risk.
Yeah, that's actually a beautiful word, because that is exactly what it is. It's faith. And faith faith is the it's unseen, right? It's not tangible.
Right.
And it's something that I think for each one of us builds over time. I don't even really consider it religious. It could be spiritual. It's just having faith. It's having a belief in something that
Right.
that you just believe in. And I think that as I mentioned, that there were no accidents, that I think I was prepared for this in my previous business experiences, to kind of just look at it from a holistic view. And yeah, there's risk in everything, but to kind of really look at it and say, okay, what is the best way to get started in this business? And we didn't day one buy an extruder, but we did have a packaging machine, and the chef was making them by hand. And I also leveraged some other relationships of people in the bar space, and
Okay.
you know, and some that have had successful runs in selling their companies, and some that are still in the business, and kind of talked about this subject. And the ones that are still in it, and I talked to, was like, we went to co-packers, and then we came back and did it on our own, and we lost a lot of time and money and years spent. So I think that for us was always like, and especially in the beginning, because you need to control it, in a little bit. It's kind of like you said, you had to kind of format it and stuff, and so that's kind of was the decision process. And then brought in some, without, I was able to put a little bit of my capital in, and then brought some people, some, I call investors, seed investors, that knew me, and essentially just kind of talked to them, told about our plan and what we're going to do, and this was the first step. And so we got a little bit of funding to at least take that first step, and really that was the
Okay.
first thing, is buying that extruder, so to save us time and make it more efficient. And not to
Right.
say that we won't use a co-packer later on for overflow, but to get started, at least in the bar space, it seemed like the logical move was to do it in your own, at least do it on your own in the beginning.
Okay. Chris, did you have any CPG background, consumer products goods background, or food background?
No, no.
So, okay, so walk me through the process. You come out with like 5 flavors to begin with, or how
Yep.
many flavors?
So
5.
we had a
So
total
how
of
do you,
70. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, so originally though, so you get the bars made, you get them packaged. Is this the
Yeah.
original package?
No, that's the second iteration. That's our final packaging. Yeah. I don't have one of
Okay.
our old packaging, but yeah.
Okay, so you get the original package made. Do you hire a broker? Do you hire, how do you, if, I mean, you probably have the skill sets to sell, but how do
Mhm.
you, I mean, I was in the food space for many, many
Right.
years. So I
Yeah.
knew
Same
by
here.
studying Luvafoodie, I kind of knew what I was doing. But
Right.
the chef probably knew what he was doing in the retail or food service and restaurants, but that's not the same as going to get into distributor or knocking on a door of Whole Foods.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Tell me how.
Yeah.
the
I think
steps.
from day one, yeah, from day one, when we were kind of like, well, first was again tapping into all these other bar companies. I built relationships with with a few of these owners, and in the bar space, it's very crowded, right?
Mhm.
And so we said, okay, what can we do that's a little bit maybe different to start, and just kind of like feel our way. So one was because of my background in yoga, I'm connected with a lot of nutritionists and dietitians for professional sports teams. So we took before we even sold the bar to any store or anything, I wanted to make sure to validate it was that good. So I brought it to the Detroit Red Wings and Detroit Tigers before that packaging, before anything. And they both come back right around 3 weeks later saying, when can we place our first order? And so,
Nice.
and they're, yeah, and they're still customers today. So one was like, okay, there really hasn't been a bar that's been good enough for professional sports teams because they haven't been able to pass the rigorous test, the dietitians, the nutritionist, the strength coach, head chef, and all that stuff. So we said, okay, that's going to be a little niche we're going to go after because
Okay.
kind of like the way Gatorade back in the day was with the drink, that we're going to focus on a lot of sports teams just because number one, the bar, it serves a purpose and
Hmm.
that can help us spread the word about Y bars. So that was number one. And then, as I mentioned, yoga is a big passion of mine. That we're going to build a community. We want to build a community. And how do we do that? Well, we go to the farmers markets. And so here in Michigan, we are fortunate enough to have what's known as Eastern Market. And I think it's one of the largest farmers markets daily. So where you have the opportunity to talk to hundreds and thousands of people, not in one Saturday, but over a month, and really develop a relationship. And they actually, is all the farmers markets, we do about 4 every weekend still today.
Hmm.
It's the consumer that gave us the feedback. It's the consumer that helped us, come up with the packaging. It was the consumer that would go to the the local Whole Food store or the local, here, Plum, Papa Joe's, and say, hey, you got to get these bars in, because that's what we did. So we started with the farmers markets, and why we have the 3 hours of fuel on the back of our bar, it's because so many people, even like yourself, would say this bar tastes great, but it helps me. It curbs my appetite. It curbs my appetite. So, for at least, 3, 4 hours. And so in the beginning, we had to develop, what does the bar do? And then once we did that and saw how we were different from other bars, that gave me the personal confidence that, okay, this is how we go into retail. This is how we go and talk to our brokers who are going to represent us. This is how we are going to be messengers of this Y bars and just see where it goes. So we started in Michigan. We said, how can we own our home state? And we
Right.
said, okay,
Which is what you do. You
which
start regionally. You start. Yeah.
right. And so that was basically, we all went through COVID. So, just say after COVID, we are in every store that you can think of in Michigan. That's not like big box, like Whole Foods, Kroger's, Trader Joe's, but in every natural chain, every
Yep.
little grocery store, every place where we can get into a juice bar or yoga studio, we want Y bars there. And so, and we're actually this weekend coming up, we are going on our second year of being the official superfood snack bar for the Detroit Free Press Marathon. So
Nice.
it's really, yeah, so it's really being active in our our community, and then duplicating that outwards to other communities and being like that. So seeing what's worked here and what can go in the next market. So, and through that, you know, brokers have approached us. Certain sales folks have approached us in certain areas of the country where we've built relationships with them, and they're helping us expand the brand. So from that, we're strong in certain areas in the Midwest, the East Coast, and West Coast. We're set up with KeHE and Unify nationally.
Oh, you are.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
All
and
right.
we,
So that's a big
yep,
step. You went with two of the largest distributors in the country, so you can ship
yep.
anywhere.
We
Yeah.
could ship anywhere, and we work with some great regional distributors. And it seems like, and I think you could attest to this, Michelle, it's a lot of the stores kind of sometimes dictate, because they say we work with certain distributor,
Right.
at least nowadays,
Absolutely.
they don't work direct, unless you're working with a smaller chain that says, oh yeah, we'll do
Right.
direct. Most of them go through
Right.
distributor, and that's kind of how we've got in with distributors. And same thing with the brokers. only work with a handful, but they're brokers that love our product, and they're brokers that believe in our product. So they want to add that to their portfolio, and that's been a great relationship.
Nice. So, Chris, how is your company structured? You're the CEO, you're the founder, along with the chef.
Right.
Do you have fractional like CFO or fractional CMO or
Yeah,
salespeople?
great question, man. Great question, because you kind of right. There's many hats to the business, and to your
Yep.
point, yes, pretty much those are the type of roles where they're not like full time yet.
Right.
But that's a good way. That's a great way to put it. Fractional CFO and what have you. But we have those type of areas like your attorney, your
Yep.
accounting, and then in the kitchen we have our staff that helps us produce the bars. But essentially, that's it. So it's a
Okay.
small tight.
It's a small group. So, what on a daily basis, Chris? What are you? Are you more of the sales end? Are you production? What do you do every day? I mean, I know I
Yeah,
wear every hat.
yeah. It's right now. I mean, to that point, that's what it is. I wear every hat, and getting to a place where strategically to remove myself for certain things that don't really serve the company in the high end. But essentially, my day is I wear all the hats. Essentially, I'm selling approximately usually up to about 1:32 p.m. every day, and it's 2 p.m. right now, and I'm in the kitchen in kind of our office cubicles because we're producing. And right after this call, I will be on the line with the team producing bars. So that's kind of like my daily thing. I'll
Okay.
do any Y bars work, and it's just not sales. It's like everything from distributors to your brokers to whomever you're dealing with.
Yep.
So really everything administrative and sales up to about 1:32. I come to the kitchen. I'll be here probably about till 5:30 at night, being with the team and producing the bars.
And is that Monday through Friday, or do you work on the weekends?
I'm always working, yeah, yeah, and but I like it. So I don't look at it as at work, from a spiritual perspective. That it's all intertwined. So if it's like if I'm on the line at Y bars, or if I'm making a sales call, or I'm on my yoga mat, it's all the same to me, as long as I'm
Yeah.
giving all the best that I can. So that's when people bring up work, I say I'm working 24/7.
Yeah.
It's all
That's
work.
it's out. I agree. It's the same for me.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your book.
Yeah.
Do you want to hold that
Oh
up
yeah.
and
Yeah.
tell us
Yeah.
about the book?
Yeah. It's called
What's it called?
The Humble Warrior: Spiritual Tools for Living a Purposeful Life.
Okay.
And
And tell
I
tell
think
me about what is it about your life, or what is it, tools or tips?
it's a combination of both. I think it's actually a great book for entrepreneurs. It was interesting. I was on a call with a young entrepreneur today, very successful guy, and his kids are, I think he said 6, 4, and 2, and he sold a business. He's in this business. And he's like, I have anxiety, this, that, and the other. And I just took a step back because I saw myself in him 20 years ago, and I think, and that's like really the purpose. I wrote this book because I was going life one way so hard, and you could lose yourself by doing that. And that's what I mean. Spiritual tools for living a purposeful life is that by me running so hard one way, I was building successful business, and on the exterior, everything looked good, but the interior was soulless. And because of that, I went through some exterior issues. I went through a divorce. I went through um, three, after a successful run business, three startups, 18 months apart, that couldn't get off the ground. And so when the last one went down in a divorce, I had to look back and say, something's not right here. And that's when I leaned on my yoga, my spirituality, my faith, and my meditation practice. And part of the book for myself was to heal, but it was to use, but in the book, which is the most important part, is the daily routine that I call spiritual fitness that keeps me grounded. That no matter what, that is success to me. That as long as I'm doing my practice, then the rest of the day is going to flow beautifully. And so it was no accident that when I wrote this book, I had no intentions of like, however, I just had to write it and get it out. I just knew that.
Right. Right.
And so the book gets published June of 2017, right? Then 3 months later, I run into the chef. I mean,
So
and
it
he
was
has
karma. It was meant to be. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And he's an author and he had a book, and that's how we built trust is we each gave each other's books and read them in 24 hours and then met. So that's the other thing beautiful about this. Everything we're talking about is if it's kind of like a mindset and a kind of just knowing
Yeah.
that you may think you got to do it this way, but if you're open, if you can just be open and just give it your best and be an honest person and truthful, everything really is falling into place for you, even if certain things may not be. It actually is.
I believe in that, and I view myself as very spiritual, and I put a lot out to the universe, and I think it's important every day to set your intentions,
Mm-hmm.
what it is that you want, what your goals are,
Yep.
and ask for it. And
Yep.
it's like a vision board. And some days you have to really search high because you have to really go deep to find that faith because you know like you said, you can't see it, but you
Right.
have to. That's what keeps me going is having the
Right.
faith that okay, I've put everything out there. I'm doing everything I can. It will happen.
Right. Right. And that's faith and belief it will. And
Yeah,
yeah, and we all have the ability to do that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what are you? Where? So you have distribution pretty
Yep.
much in a. What are your goals? Is it national to get into like Target, Whole Foods, the big boxes?
Yeah, I think for us, and what we've kind of defined is finding like where our prototypical customer shops. I think I think the first one that we're working on is Whole Foods. They've accepted us in Michigan and Ohio, and we're going through a an audit of our kitchen because they have new um, I guess, new qualifications to get in. And since we make our own bars, we have to go through an audit and get a certain type of certification. It's known as GMP. So we're going through that process with them. But for us on the retail, that would be very big, just
Yeah.
because that is the store, and there's a total of 500 of those. So I think that is one, and then it's like dealing with some other strategic partnerships. There's a place we got into called Discount Drug Mart, 77 stores in Ohio, and they've been around the 20s. And think of a CVS, right?
Okay.
But what they are, they're a family. Like it feels like you're in a family, and so
Okay.
we came across our bars and loved them. So we went to go visit them in Cleveland. But what made this partnership worth doing is they're big into sports. And so they have what's known as a Pro Points program. And what that means is you become part of the Pro Points family. And through that, you develop a partnership with their sports teams, the Cleveland Indian, or not the Cleveland Guardians, excuse me, the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and their ice hockey team. And so that made sense to do that because we're kind of in that athletic sports world. Um, so those type of partnerships we're looking for. And then
Okay.
I think, one of my it's more of a personal goal with this because I'm just so passionate about it, is I would like to be and believe will happen the number one superfood snack bar in sports, for all of sports. And because I've been that athlete on all the levels, not just you don't have to be professional athlete. I mean, this is good for any amateur athlete and also for any young individual, female
Right.
or male. And yeah, so and I think like the Targets, the Walmarts, even the Costco's, those come almost kind of at the end when your brand is built, I think. And oh, and we have got a lot to do on the e-commerce side and with Amazon, so we're just exploring that. As you know, there's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a
There's a
lot.
lot.
There's a lot, and so it's where do we feel the best place to put the bar is? That's kind of where we're putting our time and energy into now.
Right. Right. So, Chris, is your goal ultimately to sell the company? I
You know,
mean, you're
it's
because we all are entrepreneurs, and as you
right.
get investors, they
Yeah,
want an exit plan. They want to be able to get their money out of it, right?
yeah.
At some point. Um, so where do you see yourself? The company is 3 years old, or how? How many years old?
Yeah, yeah. It's actually it's hard to believe it will be 5. It
5. Okay.
in November, but it seems it's some days at these sometimes it seems like 3, sometimes it seems like 10. But
Exactly.
you know,
I totally
um,
understand.
yeah, but I it's because of like my experiences and my background. Like I mentioned, I did sell one company back, and that was for 60 million, and that's kind of what I know. So what I mean is that when I was talking to the chef, we wrote out a plan, to say, okay, where do we think this could be in 5 to 7 years? And at that time, if we're at this revenue, there would be, a potential sales exit. And at the same time, if we're going along those lines and something happens where you just like are scaling like crazy, or you're just having a lot of at the same time just having a lot of fun, and there's no reason to, um you cross that bridge when you do it. But to have a plan is, yeah, we have a plan. It's why the investors so far have invested. We have a plan that says by 2024, 2025 will be at X, and the company should
Yeah,
be worth Y, and that's why they invested.
got it. Got it.
Yeah,
But is
yeah,
this so? I want to ask you one more question, and then I'll let you
yeah,
go make some bars.
yeah, sure.
So, as an entrepreneur, this was not the first company. Luvafoodie wasn't the first company that I sort of started, but it's the first one that lasted. I mean, I
Right,
did little things all along my career.
right. Good for you.
Is
That's yeah.
Yeah, but they were just like, just not even on the board. But is this the last thing we'll see from Chris Forte?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Really?
I don't. Well, I don't. I think it'll be. Again, a lot of this is surrender and trust. But so I kind of leave it up to the hire to just use me where I need to be used, and that kind of is also a freeing feeling too. Is that's all I want to do is give it the best of whatever I can do, um, to inspire others to make the world a better place. So I think Y Bars will get to a place where, um, I leave it at this: once Y Bar is a national brand and people know about the brand and the product, most likely my job will be done here, however that looks and wherever that goes. And because I believe that is what I'm meant to do here. I know myself. And then whatever that next thing could be, that next thing could be, you know.
Good
I
answer.
leave it open. I leave it open. Yeah.
Good answer, Chris. I love
Yeah.
that actually. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you today. This is the first time we've spoken, and I'm inspired, and I have to
Well,
tell everybody out there, honest to God, I would recommend these. These are
thank
chewy,
you.
they're delicious. It's the first energy bar that I actually like. Honest to
Awesome.
God. And that's the truth. So go on
You and me
Chris's
both.
website, go on Amazon, go on y.com. It's ybars.com, right?
Yeah, and I'll give a coupon code to the audience off our website, ybars.com. You could plug in why not 20 for 20% discount off our website.
Nice. Is that for one buy or limited buy or?
Unlimited. You use it all the time. It's called a family friends coupon code. Why not 20? WHYNOT 20.
That's awesome. Well, everybody, take advantage of it. These are really, really good. These would also be good to put in your kids' lunch boxes. If your
You
kids
know,
are in sports and
yeah.
they are in after school programs and they need something after school before they get home, these are great. Fun flavors, delicious. And I really enjoyed tasting them. I'm going to save the others for my trip in a week. And Chris, it's been my pleasure to have you with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Join us next week when we'll have another special guest. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.